to our online accessibility workshop. My name is Cassandra Drake. I am an associate professor in the Liberal Studies Department, and I am the lead faculty fellow for our digital accessibility. And you can see it says digital instructional materials accessibility. And we have that distinction because my team, our goal is to support faculty with their instructional materials, but you will hear rumblings across campus, probably maybe from your ASCs in your department offices, because web accessibility is part of the show too. We do provide some support for web, but mostly that is done with Mandeep and her team, and she has working with her student assistant named Saul. So if you have a website or something that you know your department has that might need looking at, they are the ones that we would send folks to specifically for web-based support. As I said, our realm of this accessibility effort is instructional materials. So that means any kind of document that you're using. We can talk about extensive support for PDF accessibility. And then we have support in terms of trainings, whether it's one-on-one training if you need it, or we also have some recorded trainings when it comes to creating accessible documents, such as PowerPoints, Word documents, and that sort of thing. In addition to documents, we have our course shells. My team, you might have seen Glenn and I last semester every Friday, and he was providing this particularly with the Canvas accessibility tool. You do it and tidy up. You might have gotten used to Ally if you had initially, like within the past few years, worked on your accessibility efforts. Ally was dropped by the chancellor's office. That was upper level decision that we didn't have a part in, but it was dropped by the chancellor's office because You Do It is actually WCAG compliant. And you might be like, what is that? If we back up, we are working towards digital accessibility because the ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, was updated about 2 years ago. That update was particularly surrounding digital materials. When you go out in the world and you have the curbs that, drop down so people with strollers or wheelchairs can push their device up onto a sidewalk, that's ADA. That is the exact same law. But now this law, because it hadn't previously been applied to digital materials, now it's been extended. And who that law applies to is anyone within a government or public funded institution. So that would be your Social Security office, your DMV, as well as public universities like the CSU and the UCs. Faculty are largely responsible for their accessibility efforts, but we are here to support you. And I will say also, we're not forcing you. We're just happy you're here and willing to learn and ask questions and get started, but no one is forcing faculty to do this. There are people that have chosen to opt out. I don't recommend it. We have no way of knowing what the legal implications could be down the line of opting out or refusing to start your remediation efforts. So today is really about learning together in community. Here we are, a little community, making progress. So whatever progress looks like for you is what I hope to help you out with today. So that might be getting started. That might be polishing if you've already been working on it. That might be understanding some of the tools that we offer. We do have digital tools that we can use to support your efforts as well. Getting support that fits your course materials. So one of the most challenging parts about this work, as I've come to find, is that one size doesn't fit all. Everybody, because we have academic freedom, we all set up our courses in different ways. We all have our instructional materials in different places. Some people are fully in Canvas. Some people use Canvas as a hub and store their files in a OneDrive or another cloud-based storage system. That is okay. I'm not here to tell you how to organize your overall course or your course shell, but I am here to give you advice on how to best arrange things so that A, it's accessible, and so that B, when you use Tidy Up in Canvas, you can click the boxes and say, I did that, I did that, I did that, and then your score goes up. And I also can show you what that looks like in Canvas today as well, if you haven't yet delved into it. I do want to say the score is a goal, and our goal is to get it to like 80 or 90%. nobody's scanning your course and going to give you a slap on the hand if you didn't get it up to 80 or 90%. We're really looking for a good faith effort. So we have a really cool TDX support form that I can show you as well. And within that form, it's just like if you're having a tech problem and you need help from OIT, we use this form. It's different, but it's built out of the same system. This form can be used to request training from one of our faculty fellows, request a course consultation specific to a course shell that you're working on. You can also use it to ask a specific ADA or legal question. Associate Vice President of Faculty Affairs, Roni. She will answer any legal questions that faculty have. And then we also have within that form, I feel like I'm missing a couple of things, but the golden ticket for that form is PDF remediation. We actually have a team of 4 students who have been trained by DRS. They are completely trained to OCR scan, which OCR stands for optical character recognition. They strictly work with PDFs, but if you have PDFs in your course that you need to be remediated, you can use the form that I mentioned, that I will give you the link to today, to submit a ticket or a request to have your documents remediated. I always try to start with the recognition of that this is a lot. It feels like a lot, especially because we're not getting paid to be trained and we're not getting paid to do this. The federal government made a law and we have to comply. As I said, I'm here for support. Just submitting your PDFs is where you start. That's a great start. That actually will help a lot. If you're just going to go through your Canvas shell and adjust the images and add alt text, that's a great start too. So just keep that in mind. We want you to do this little by little. This should be, or we hope that eventually it'll be part of our teaching practice, that we all just start to know when we drop a link, we want to make sure that link isn't a long URL, and we want to make sure it is a descriptive link. Or when we put an image, accessibility tells me, okay, I've got to make sure that image is accessible either with, if it's going to be in a table, like you said, we have to do certain things. If it's going to actually be presented as an image, we can use alt text and extended descriptions to describe that image. So we kind of have the ability to, with certain things, kind of choose our tool or choose our direction based on what we think works best for our course, for our pedagogical approach, and for ease of use for our students. Here's my redesign checklist. I'll give it to you in the chat. So I do have checklists because we all function well when I know I do, but we don't want it to think about this as a checklist that once I check these things off, I'm done forever and I can forget about this stuff. If we add something to our course shell, we're going to have to make sure we fix it. Your course shells are living, breathing pieces of work that you design and then copy over every semester. And so it's just a recognition that you're not going to be able to just be like, okay, it's done forever. We're always going to have that accessibility in mind when we are designing or redesigning our courses each semester. Also, not about doing everything all at once. Like I said, little by little, it is about clarity. It is about reducing barriers, and it's also about helping students focus on learning. So I can say I've had many kind of discussions, especially with students that do need accessible materials. Really interesting to hear it from the student perspective about how accessibility in our digital lives and in our instructional materials really improves things for them. One thing that I have discussed in Academic Senate, but it behooves me to say it here as well, is that although a lot of what we do in accessibility work is for screen reader users, and or for those who are deaf or hard of hearing, like captions, I don't want people to think that we're only serving students who use a screen reader or students who cannot hear. There are actually 4 disability categories. So as you can see here, disability areas that using strong color contrast and readable font size, publishing content directly on pages, using color shapes and text together to convey meaning, keeping layouts linear and logical, and placing buttons and notifications in context. So that some of this is like web-based stuff. But if you can imagine someone who has low vision, and if you've got like a web page with buttons all over it, and if those buttons are very close together, it's going to be really hard for that user to distinguish where to put their cursor to click. For folks who are deaf or hard of hearing, obviously using plain language is important, and providing captions and transcripts. If we have audio, I use podcasts sometimes in my classes, so I need to make sure there's a transcript included with that audio recording. When we use, again, simple linear layouts overall, breaking text into smaller, if you as an instructor are providing stuff that's giant chunks of text versus smaller sections with subheadings, we can understand how certain groups would struggle. And then, of course, offering communication options beyond the phone. For cognitive or learning disabilities, again, you see this is 3 times, using plain, simple language, breaking information into small chunks, keeping navigation layouts consistent. So like when you are designing your Canvas course shell, for it to be consistent. That helps people who have cognitive or learning disabilities, but quite frankly, all students benefit from strong design and organization within our course shells, avoiding distracting or auto-playing elements. And then finally, for mobility or motor disabilities, ensuring all functions work via keyboard, spacing interactive elements enough apart, providing alternatives to drag and drop or precision tasks, and avoiding voice recognition software. So those are just a few little ideas. Screen reader users are wide and far between. And if you've never actually tried it, many of our computers actually have like screen reader functions in our accessibility tools. Is when you get overwhelmed and you start your accessibility journey, remember to chill. And I don't mean that in a sassy way. I mean it as it's a great acronym. We want to ensure, and basically when you always remember your chill in the back of your head, whether you're in Word, PowerPoint, Canvas, or on your PDFs, this is your way to remember what you need to address. So C stands for color and contrast, H is for headings and hierarchy, I is for inclusive images, and L is for links and labels. So we will go by one. Color and contrast. This can also stand for captions, but I thought 3 words for C would be a little much. Considering color and contrast, we want to look for adequate contrast between the background and the font. And so what that means, obviously, like right here, this is the best one you can do. White background with black font, or the opposite, black background with white font. That would be high contrast. Folks with low vision or, blindness, or some, what it would be, partial blindness, really benefit from high contrast. What that also means, though, is not to use color alone to provide emphasis. Have you ever done this because you want it to jump out at your students? I have a lot of that in some of my shells where I open the assignment or the page and I walk the students through it, and I actually have stuff highlighted because I want it to jump out at them. But again, if you're considering that some people have color blindness, and there's different kind of versions of color blindness, someone might not see that highlight that you have provided. Sighted users or people with full vision might be fine, but people with low vision or color blindness might struggle. So the answer, whether you're in Canvas, and so if you're seeing this come up in your Canvas shell as something that it wants you to fix, all you have to do to fix it is bold it. You could remove the color, but I really don't want to be the one like across the board here where I'm telling people, don't do that, change what you do. I don't want you to have to back off of your like pedagogical practices and the way that you operate because of accessibility. I just want to give you the understanding of what you can do to fix things. And so bolding it actually fixes things. HTML in Canvas, when you only put a color to highlight something, that HTML does not catch the color. When you switch it to HTML view, there's nothing there that indicates to a screen reader that you have highlighted that text. So bolding it, when you look at HTML and add bold to a block of text, the HTML will say strong, and then it will read the text to the person who's using the screen reader. So bolding whatever you've highlighted will automatically set you up and you're good to go because you've used something other than color to provide emphasis. Headings and hierarchy. Okay, so what we want to look for is real headings, not just bolded text, especially in Canvas, but in Word as well. Many of us feel like if we make a font larger and we bold it, that is a heading. And what that does is only change the look of your font, However, it does not change the style of your font, which I know sounds really weird because it seems to me if I bold it, that's a style. But I will go over into my Word document that I mentioned, and I will show you the styles. And if anyone wants, we can also do the same in Canvas. Logical structure just means like, if you're using bullet points or whatever, to make sure that it's not wackadoo. Slide titles that mean something. So if you're talking about headings within your slides, you can see here that each of my slide titles is distinct and unique, and it is related to the content down below in the slide. Some of us might just use the same slide title on all of our slides. So if Stephen were to make a PowerPoint and all of his slide titles said judicial decision making, because, he feels like, well, that's what my presentation is about. But what that does for someone with a screen reader opens a presentation, they're going to scan through the presentation and listen to the title of each of those slides to understand the content of what you have. So making sure that each of your slides has a title that is distinct. If they're just that similar that you don't want to create a different title, then at least distinguish them somehow. Why this matters, headings allow students to navigate content efficiently, visually, and with screen readers. Whenever we sit down, whether it's a journal article or it's a news article or something, as a sighted reader, what we usually do is we suss it up. We're going to be like, oh, how long is this? What am I getting myself into? Anyone who uses a screen reader, especially someone who has low or no vision, but many folks that use screen readers in general are going to tab through the headings to understand the structure before they dive into the content. Headings are really crucial because it gives the user or your students an understanding of what they're getting into before they start. I built this kind of like understanding of what we need to go through. And then sometimes what I do, and I know some of our colleagues do this, is you can give a messy document to ChatGPT and ask it to format it for you. It doesn't always do a good job. You also have to make sure that you're very explicit and you say, please reformat this with fully accessible headings, and maintain all content, because if you don't, it might just do what it wants with it because you didn't say maintain content or maintain content for meaning. If you do something like that, it's totally acceptable at work. Just be very explicit with your generative AI. I've also actually redesigned one of my Canvas shells. So I had a whole Canvas shell that was actually based in Google Docs. I realized with this redesign effort, I thought to myself, well, I should really move this content from those Google Docs into Canvas pages because the person had used tables on those documents to organize the content. So it was like a schedule and it was within a table. And as we go, we'll talk more about tables, but a really important thing to know about using tables is do not use tables for formatting. Only use tables when you need to present data. Tables used for formatting can be really difficult for a screen reader user because you're using it to make things look pretty, but not necessarily to organize your data. When we are looking at this, first of all, you can see I've got my heading up here, which really is kind of functioning as a title right now. And then I have these sections that have, it's bolded. So it seems to me that this might already be ready to go. But again, ChatGPT made it. So whenever you want to do headings, you can always fall back on the font section, you know what I mean? Like the bold and this and that. But remember what I said, bolding, color, making the font larger does not equal heading. So what you really want to do is get to know your styles pane. You can click on it like this, but again, I feel like I can't think when things are really small. Click on this one right here that says styles pane. And that's going to pop it open over here on the right. Cool thing about this is what I really like about having this. I want you to keep your eyes right here on this for me. And I'm going to click on this top one. Okay. So it is actually set as a heading 1. The other document that I looked at was this was set as a title. Highlight it and then you click title, right? And so maybe I want that to be my title. That's okay. But this is the point, is that when we're trying to set our documents up for screen reader accessibility, This is what we need to use. And then some might say like, ooh, well, that's ugly. I don't want it formatted. Well, at this point, once you've applied this style, you can come in and you can fix it like that, but it's still maintaining the title. It's just changing the font size, which will not affect its ability to be read by a screen reader. So really the style is about provides you a format, but ultimately it's providing you like a tag within the HTML. It's a tag in there that tells the screen reader heading 1. It will read that out, or it'll say H1. And then you can adjust your color and your font size and everything else after. Go down the line and see what else we've got here. And again, you just like tap it and then take a look. So this is just normal style. This would not be read in any way, shape, or form that's different. It would just read it. See what this is. Okay, see this? So this is just showing up as normal bolded font. So a screen reader user would have no way of distinguishing these as headings as they are intended to be for visual users. This is picking up that it's a bullet. You can see it over there, but we need to adjust this. So it is as simple as highlighting and then deciding what do you want it to do. And remember, when we do headings, we want it to have a hierarchy. We want it to be heading 2. Let's come over here and click. Now, say you're picky. Maybe you want it to look like this, but like, what am I going to do? Because my heading 2, which I need it to be heading 2, doesn't look how I want it. Well, you know what I could do? I could sit here and I could go, okay, one thing at a time. I could turn it black. I want it to be Cambria, and it's not. It's Calibri. So I could be like, okay, I'm going to change it over here, and then I'm going to change it to Cambria. But can you imagine that I'd have to do that every... Well, my friends, I have a fix for us. And you can see it's picked that up over there, right? It's saying heading 2. Saying the body is Cambria, like it's seeing what I did to change it. But actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the style of the actual heading. So you just click over here and you say modify style. So you could rename it, it could be like H2BW, like black and white, because I don't want that blue font. But you just come in here and you make it what you want it to be. So I want it to be black. I want it to be Cambria. Maybe I want it to be a 12. You can also adjust your paragraph over here. Now I can come here one at a time, highlight each. It's going from normal to heading 2. Let's go ahead and adjust my heading 1. So I'm going to modify the style. Again, I want it to be black. 14's a little small, so I'd like my heading 1. If heading 2 was 12, 16 makes sense. I'll put H1BW for black and white. Let me just see if I want to do a little paragraph in here. Let's do it. It could be single space because it's the top one. So just the font needs to be Cambria. So it's super easy to go in and make these adjustments. We have a document that we have addressed all the headings. It is fully accessible for a screen reader user. And the great news is if I save this as a PDF, it will retain those headings. That's what we talk about when we talk about your source documents. If you're maintaining accessible source documents, and then you save that document as a PDF, odds are pretty high you won't even need to get it remediated because it was accessible in the first place. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's save this. File, save. Typically, like when I create something and I make it accessible, I'm going to put brackets at the end and I'm going to put either a big A or a little a, but that's how I like make sure I can tell the difference between my inaccessible document and the document that I fixed. Just make sure you change that file name so that you're making sure you're retaining what the changes are that you've made. Now, the other piece of this, because if you look at your UDoIt, when you have PDFs that are getting flagged as having an issue, there's 2 main problems with PDFs. Either they don't have tags, which we talked about OCR and we talked about, what that looks like. But the other issue for most PDFs is that they don't have a title. This can be confusing because it has a title, right? For us, we feel like it has a title. But remember, that's just the heading on the page. Then one might say, well, it has a title right up there. That's the file name. That's what I will show you. And again, if you do this in your Word documents, you can also fix it in Adobe. But if you do this in your Word documents, it will maintain it. So to change the title of the document, go to File and Properties. Now click on Summary. And right there, and again, remember I said this was a ChatGPT, that's how you can tell. So if your students turn in something, look at the document properties, and if it says Python doc, You know it was ChatGPT and not your student. I'm going to, now that I have adjusted this and edited it, I'm going to call it my document. Actually, I'll just put Drake C. And then up here in my title, give it a real title. Now I save, say okay. This hasn't changed again because remember that's the file name. But now watch this. Let's go ahead and do the same. We'll say save as PDF right here. If you're going to print it, maybe it's best for printing, but when it comes to making PDFs for students to use and access online, you want to make sure you have that best for electronic distribution and accessibility bubble checked, because that's basically telling Word, hey, when you move this to a PDF, retain those headings. Now let's say export. Let's go take a look at that PDF. You're at a basic level, right? This is what it would look like when you open up your Adobe. I know I have my full Adobe Pro because I can see my Stand State email address up here at the top. Within that Adobe Pro, that means you have access to all the tools. So this is what Anicia was referring to earlier, like scan and OCR, but I believe, based on my past experience, that we're going to be good, that we don't have to OCR because it is a text-based PDF that was created from an accessible Word document. No, it's text-based because like if you want to test a document, just run your cursor over text. And if it highlights, that tells you you're working with a text-based PDF. If it does not, or it's choppy and messy, then it's image-based. I'm going to go ahead and click on prepare for accessibility. And when you send PDFs to my students, this is what they start with. They actually use Adobe for their basic first scan to see what's going on. Click on check for accessibility. Make sure each of these, all of the boxes are checked. So we say start checking. And you're going to see as I finished that, it popped open my accessibility checker over here. If you have a document that is messy, you're going to see a bunch of issues like this. So if you click on these and open these up, you can see these are each of the areas that would need to be considered for accessibility within Adobe, and that's what it checks for. But great news, everybody. Look at all those passes. And you can see I only have 2 issues, reading order and color contrast. And that is because those are the 2 things that must be done by a human. But everything else has passed, including my title. This doesn't have a title. You see how it has the file name up here? So a screen reader, when the user starts, it's going to read them the title first, and then it's going to dive down into the document. And so this, and even I could show you if we go to File, Document Properties, Dear Cache, I love it's fine, but that's exactly what's going on over here, right? So IID 2026. Agenda. So if I put this agenda in my Canvas shell, it would fail and it would say it needs a title. And literally that's all we have to do to fix it. And now you can see up there, it's changed it. And I now have a title. You might be wondering, well, Cassandra, what do I do? Or do I need to do anything with regards to these 2 things? Color contrast, you would just take a look. If you're a sighted user, you'd use your eyes and you would say, well, black and white. Good to go. You don't have to come in and do these things. It will not get flagged if you put a PDF in your shell that doesn't have these things addressed. If you really want like nice, clean, fully accessible past documents, you can just right click on it like that and say pass. And you can see it's addressing it. It says manually. Now reading order, this is literally the tags. Are they in the correct order? And again, because we used Word and we used headings and we moved that all over, my reading order should be good to go. Should you ever want to check your reading order, which again, like this is down in the weeds. You don't have to get this detailed, but if you want, I'm showing you right now. First of all, this is like the reading order page. So it's just kind of showing like there's not a lot going on here because it's basically seeing it all as one thing. Sometimes if we look at that, we don't need to. This is what we want, the tag tree, TAGTREE tag tree. All you have to do to check the reading order in your tag tree is click on that, you can click up at the top, click on your first tag, and then just move your cursor. And now you can see there's my heading 1. Here's the paragraph. Here's heading 2, a list. And within that list, I just clicked my right arrow. You can see each of those bullets is getting, wow, way to go, Word. Isn't that nice? And collapse it again. And I'll just go quickly down the way. And you can see we created a fully accessible PDF by just applying our accessibility principles within our Word document. I'll just save it. I'm going to do big A, little a, just because I've like made adjustments. So that old one didn't have the title fixed, or I don't know what it was, but everything that I just did is saved. All right, so up next, we're going to talk about inclusive images. And so when you're looking through your content, ask yourself, does this image convey meaning for learning? Many of us have images like this over here that does not affect the user or the participant's ability to understand the content, or if we're talking about a class, the student's ability to do well or succeed in your class. So any kind of image like that that really has, it's just there because it's pretty, then you're going to want to mark that as decorative. If it conveys meaning, like flow charts, we're going to talk about your flow charts, then you're going to want to make sure that you have alt text to describe the meaning of that. But in this case, my access for all, my beautiful logo made by our marketing department shows the 4 disability categories. It's not necessarily make or break for my user. In PowerPoint, I can actually set my alt text. I can right click on the image and then go to view alt text. So we're about to get into the accessibility tools here in PowerPoint. When I do that, it pops open this little panel over here, gives me a little description, which is nice. Like, how do I do alt text? What do I need to focus on? Gives me a little description, which is nice. Like, how do I do alt text? What do I need to focus on? How would you describe this object and its context to someone who is blind or low vision? Provide some detail, or is there a setting you need to describe, actions or interactions or other relevant information? PowerPoint is telling you 1 to 2 detailed sentences. WCAG compliant alt text should be 150, is it words or less? But basically you could either describe this or you just say mark as decorative. And that marks it as good to go. We can do the same in Canvas. Thus, what we're going to do, we're going to just look at this first image right here. Okay, so if you go to edit, and this would be at any Canvas page or any, your announcement, Stephen. Yank this down, and then all we got to do is click on the image and say image options. It's going to give us this lovely little pop open. And as you can see, I was in here and I made sure it was accessible. So I checked decorative image, but let's say I want this image. Maybe it's core. It's so important that if students cannot see this and they are low vision or basically, using a screen reader, it's going to impact their ability to be successful in my course. So I'm going to want to come up with an alt text description. It's as simple as writing Google accessibility title with 4 animated people all working together. One is in a wheelchair, one man has a laptop, and the Access for All logo. Like, I could just do that, and that's acceptable. This is one of the AI tools that we provide for people who are interested in using AI. Okay, so basically what you would do, you're just going to drag and drop or upload your file right here. There it goes, screenshot. That's all you got to do is just come into browse. Okay, upload it. Now I just say create image details. Here's my alt text right there. Illustration of diverse characters with Google accessibility text above. I mean, that works for me. And again, if you're just looking at trying to add some quick alt text and not beating yourself in the head trying to think of it, this is a good, fast option. The other thing that I really like about this, if you have, say you have a PowerPoint that has an image as a slide, I took a screenshot of a slide and just dropped that screenshot on the slide. So it has no tags, no title. It's an image, but there's text in that image, which can be really, like, that's completely inaccessible. So this is a really good tool for that, because right here you can see it transcribed the text for me. The other piece that I really like about this is that it gives you a long description. People do, as well as my students, when they're like doing remediation of complex PDFs from the history department with maps and all kinds of stuff. They take that image, they add the alt text, but then below the image, they add the long description. So if you're like working with a PowerPoint, let's come back over here. You have an image up here and you've done the same thing where you've created that alt text and added the alt text to the image like I showed you earlier. That long description can come down here. When it comes to links and labels, you want to check, do the links make sense out of context? Are the file names descriptive? And would a screen reader user know where it goes? Okay, so what does that all mean? Well, let's go back to the link that I shared with you in the chat. So let's say I'm putting this link in like so. If a screen reader user gets to this link, the screen reader will say https://ASUO-AI. I can't even get to the end of it without getting frustrated because that's ridiculously long. So the key to having your links be accessible is to create a descriptive link. So I spaced it out so it activated the hyperlink. But now what I'm going to do, and this is the same thing in Canvas, but we can show an example in Canvas as well. I'm going to right click and then I'm going to look for edit hyperlink. And quite simply, I just come up here to the text every single time, whether you're in PowerPoint, Word, or Canvas, and you add a hyperlink, it always has layers. It has the layer of text, and then it has the layer of the actual link to where it goes, the URL. So I want to change the text. All you need to do is make sure that it is descriptive and it tells the user where it takes them. Just like I said, that a screen reader user uses the headings to kind of get their bearings on what this document is, they're also looking for the links. The links are also, it's also something they're like, oh, what is this? Where is this going? Okay, neat. Because maybe they're looking for something very specific, right? One of your students is looking for a link to that DOJ webpage that you're using in your class. And so they might just be tabbing through your document looking for that link. So in this case, I'm going to describe this as the ASU accessible image creator. Also going to, again, just because some folks aren't into the AI, I'm going to make sure I let my user know that it's AI. And now I have an accessible link. It's that simple. And so again, based on what we had just talked about, we know like a screen reader user, that would be annoying. Click here. Where does it go? Now they have to click here and lose track of what they're doing because I haven't provided a descriptive link. I'm going to go ahead and put down this inaccessible link right there. Okay. And then I'm going to save it. And then we're going to run over to tidy up. Clearly, we've got some work to do on this course shell, and that's okay. But what I want to do is go find that link because I really want to demonstrate, like you were saying, what this looks like on here. So I'm going to come here to links, and I saw it pop from 24 to 25. So over here, this is interesting. It's a suggestion. It means it's not like an error, but it's suggesting that you fix something. All of this, if it's nondescript text, we should fix it. This is the one I remember. It was in my page that I used as my home page. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And just as you said, this is what it looks like, nice and easy. I appreciate this piece here because if you're brand new, I think it does make it really easy to kind of get started and understand what's wrong. I will say, however, if you're using UDoIT and you find an error or something's not working, to take some screenshots and send them to myself and Glenn Pillsbury in the same email. And Glenn is the one who contacts. It's called City Labs that runs UDoIT and Tidy Up, and City Labs, they actually create tickets and they do get back to us and tell us what's wrong. So basically, as you case files where it thinks there's a link, but there's no text, but there was like something latent, had some instances where there's like latent link somehow, like it's not showing up as a link, but when I look at the HTML, it's like a broken link. And this is how you toggle back and forth between the regular preview and the HTML version. Basically, if you ever have something like that where like there's no link there and it's broken, then you can just tell it to delete it. But in this case, like I said, I'm going to describe this. Here it is. And I save it. And what I love about this, I know, again, preaching to the choir here, but it actively fixes it for me. Okay, so remediate, replace, or archive. Not everything needs to be remediated to the same level. Like we all have different ways of structuring our courses, and we also can be flexible with the things that we're working on. When you decide to remediate something, you're deciding to remediate it because it's core to your course, right? You want to make sure you're fixing that because this is something that all students need to be successful in my course. Or it's a required material. Maybe it's a PDF reading that they must do to be successful on the next test. So in those cases, we want to make sure we remediate. Now, maybe we want to replace old PDFs or scanned files. You and I, we went through a Word document. Perhaps that Word document, if before all those headings, it would have been inaccessible. And if I had that PDF in my course, it would be flagged. That in that case, it's not as much like something that needs to be remediated, meaning sent to my student team to fix it because it's complex. I instead am going to replace it with a file that I know I've fixed, which is what we essentially did. We went in, we fixed the headings, we adjusted the title. And then if that were in my course, I would just go in and if you've seen it and you do it, you just hit replace, upload the fixed one, and it replaces the old PDF with the one that you fixed. Those are kind of the two. And I guess this is kind of like a way of thinking of like triaging. Archive. Sometimes we might have content that's no longer in use in our courses. So whether that's old homework assignments or student examples, I could choose instead to archive. If there are things that like you're just like, I don't have time to remediate these, pie in the sky, I would love to, but right now I'm working towards that April deadline, and this is just not important to my course. So I do actually have a checklist that talks about archiving content if that's something you're interested in. But I also will just in general like share with Cash a bunch of our different resources that can be shared out to all participants. So again, archiving is a viable strategy. So it's transition to work time. The point is as you know, you're not alone. It improves with practice. And like you're already at the point where you have a lot of this and through your work with You Do It. And it gets easier with some of the shared tools, like I shared with you, the ASU AI image accessibility creator